Hi, this is Terry Brock. Hey, you know I talk a lot about relationship marketing, R-commerce, not the e-commerce, all the electronics, but it's the R-commerce that matters, the relationship commerce. Matter of fact, that's my book here on relationship marketing, and put that together. I've got something that happened to me I want to tell you about that really excited me. I got a chance just the other day to talk with my friend Larry Benet. Now, Larry is known as the connector. He really is a connector guy. He puts people together, helps them a lot. He really knows and practices a lot of that R-commerce. Even though he doesn't use that term, he's talking about the same thing, relationships, building them. And this is an advanced level course, this interview you're going to see, where you can really develop relationships. You'll learn techniques that can help you. You'll be glad you watched this. So block in a little bit of time, maybe make it a lunch and learn or something like that, and you will want to take notes on this. So if you can't right now, pause the video, go get some paper and pen, or use your computer or your iPad or whatever note-taking device you choose. Use that, start taking some notes. You're going to like this. It's Larry Benet, and by the way, you want to follow up with him. At the end, make sure you get his information on how to contact him. The guy is a genius, and he's really a good guy. You want to get to know him and get in his tribe, his circle of influence on that. So, without further ado from me, watch this interview that I did with Larry Benet just a little while ago, and you are going to enjoy it. We know that relationship marketing and connecting with people really is the most important thing in business and life. And this is something that I've talked about for many years. And now you have the opportunity to be with one of the best. His name is Larry Benet, and he is known as the Connector. Larry is joining us now from his place out there in Los Angeles. Larry, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Terry. I appreciate you having me.
It is great to be here. As a matter of fact, I got to tell the folks about you. I've got a few things here. You've done so much. I had to write all this down here. You're the chief connector and co-founder of SANG, which is Speakers and Authors Networking Group. And people get a chance to connect at a high level. People like Tony Zhao of Zappos, Tony Robbins, who has done a little bit with motivation, a lot, and an amazing guy, Guy Kawasaki, and many, many other people that are at a very high level. And the thing I like about Larry, I've known him for a long time from a distance, and then getting to know him more personally, he is real. He is genuine. When he's on the stage talking, he's one way. When he's with you in person, he's the same way. The guy is somebody who really relates to it. And so, Larry, I want to ask you, you talk about connecting all the time. Why is connection so important, and how is it best accomplished in today's busy Twitter, Facebook, network, intensified world?
Sure. Well, two things. I think what it is and why it's important. I mean, I believe whatever, first of all, Gallup, according to Gallup, they say the number one predictor of career success is the quality of one's relationships. What's interesting is they don't teach it at the university level. They don't teach it in most workforces, yet that's the number one predictor of, career success. I read another statistic which talked about most corporate executives and successful entrepreneurs meet their goals and quotas by really, better managing those relationships. But what's interesting is very few of them actually have a strategic relationship plan to really advance, key relationships in their life. And, you're talking about, in today's Facebook, Twitter society where everyone's got ADD and everyone's going 100 miles an hour. To me, I believe you can get whatever you want quicker, faster, better when you have what I consider a lot of connection currency or relationship capital. And to me, with the advent of social media, you can, you talk a lot about it, helping more people, whether it's sharing of an article, making a strategic introduction, or using a social media, tool to do research about someone. I actually met literally one of the owners of the Texas Rangers, and he's part of my SANG network. He eventually joined my mastermind. His name is Bob Bodine, and according to Sports Illustrated, it said he's one of the most influential people in sports that you've never heard of. And like I said, he's on the board of the Texas Rangers. But what he does, he basically places the CEOs or he'll place a football coach or an athletic director or a senior executive at the NBA and get them their job. And so I actually met him off of Facebook by literally engaging in his conversation, engaging in his stream of content.
Yeah.
And then eventually I said, hey, I think you and I have a mutual friend in Lee Steinberg. Lee used to be a super sports agent. The movie Jerry Maguire was based in his life, and I've met,
that's right,
spoken at SANG. And so anyway, then I took an offline relationship, and we had a phone conversation. And then I said, hey, when's the next time you're coming to LA? Let's have lunch. Those are the problem, normal progression. And what lunch turned into was like a 4.5 hour, 5 hour thing. And I find it's best, everyone has expertise and everyone has a network of connections. I think the difference between people that are true connectors and people that have a network is connectors really focusing on serving their network, making strategic introductions to their network, and more importantly, are organized in such a way to make it happen quickly. So whether whether I'm with you in person or over the phone, or maybe just making an electronic connection via social media, at the end of the day, I've got my phone figured out and my contacts in such a way as where does someone live? What's their area of expertise? What do they love to do? What are they most passionate about? And because of that, you're able to connect the dots kind of quickly. As a matter of fact, about a month ago, at the time of this recording, Labor Day was just a few weeks ago. And I met an individual named Robert Shapiro, goes by Bob. He was O.J. Simpson's, one of his trial attorneys.
Yeah.
Today, Bob, is the founder of LegalZoom, very well connected. He doesn't do any defense work anymore. He's more of a corporate attorney. But anyway, very super connected, not only in LA, but through tech circles or whatnot. Anyway, I asked him a question. And the question I asked him was, what charity or cause does he really get behind? And he told me that he really gets behind drug and alcohol awareness for young kids. And I guess he said, and I asked him, the next question was, why? And by the way, one of the best questions I think you can ask anyone is what's their favorite cause or charity, and then followed up with why. So had I stopped and not asked him why, that was the most interesting piece to me. He goes, well, my son died at 25 years old from drug and alcohol overdose. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. He goes, but we turned into like a silver lining into a positive, and we started a foundation in his honor, and we go about, helping kids and giving them college scholarships. And anyway, so I said, well, how can I support you? I said, would it help you if there were more athletes and celebrities attached, to what you're doing? He goes, that'd be great. I said, well, I know some influential people. Maybe I can invite them to your upcoming charity gala. And that's exactly what I did. I literally took a couple hours one day. I went into my iPhone, and I went literally right through my iPhone, and I asked myself, who did I know in sports? Who did I know that was a celebrity? Who did I know in business that were very influential? Who did I know that would actually resonate with this charity? And I invited a whole bunch of people. Now, not many people were able to go, but I made the direct reach out for the introduction. And
you had those right there. And now that's a wonderful way to do it. You find out why that person is interested. And so that naturally leads me to, I was going to ask you, what system are you using? What tools? There's lots of tools out there to keep track of people and do that. What do you, Larry Benet, use?
Well, I would say probably the single greatest thing, what I've done in my specific iPhone, and I teach this, when I just teach or consult, coach, or speak. But basically, I've jury-rigged the phone, so under job title, because it's searchable on the iPhone and most smartphones, I'll put in location, where you live. I'll put in your passions. I'll put in, where did you go to college? So like during a Florida State football game, I'm thinking, oh, let me reach out to my friends from Florida State. That's how I stay in touch, and I ping people an awful lot. So that's one tool. Another tool that I use Infusionsoft. Other people use Act. There's another tool that I've started to use recently called Contactually.
Contactually, I've heard of that.
Yeah, I think you can go to connectwithcontactually.com. I think they may even give a free month or something. But what this does, it'll say, hey, you haven't communicated with Terry in 90 days. Do you want to reach out to him? Maybe you want to send him an article. So that's like another tool that I think one can use. The other things that I think are really helpful, I use Google Alerts. Yeah. So if there's specific executives or companies that I want to keep a tab on, I'll open up a Google alert, and it'll tell me, hey, here's some interesting information about this individual, this company. And another tool, and again, some of these are all free tools. Newsly, Newsle, is another one where it runs in the background, and I don't know if it pulls from my Gmail list or whatnot. But again, it's just hey, Terry just came out with a book, Clout Matters. Oh, so then I'm like, I'll make a note to reach out to you and congratulate you on your latest book. Mm-hmm. Another simple thing that I do, again, it's a free thing. One of the things I do inside my Gmail, and you could use it, Outlook or any email system to do this, but when I find an interesting article, so for example, I have a lot of friends that are authors. You and I share a mutual friend, Jeff Hazlett.
Yes.
And Jeff,
he wrote the foreword for our book, Clout Matters.
Yes. And Jeff, has his own TV show on Bloomberg, and he's written a couple of good books. Now, on both of the times he came out with a book, it said he sent out an email, 12 and a half ways to help Jeff. Here's what you could do on LinkedIn. You could leave him an Amazon review. Here's what you could do on Twitter, on Facebook, and all these different things. So now what I've done is I've kept this email, and I have different folders inside my Gmail. And what it'll say articles for authors, articles for entrepreneurs, articles for health. And what I'll do is if I meet someone, if I'm having a conversation with them, I'll say, hey, I'll just forward them this simple article. But in that article, it's got 12 ways that have been very helpful to Jeff. And I say, just change out Jeff's book and Jeff's content and Jeff's links for your information. And I find that's a very helpful tool.
There's the template.
Yeah, and I always put the caveat, make sure you change out Jeff's, because one time Darren Hardy, I think the publisher of Success Magazine, he sent out something, but he forgot to change out some of Jeff's links. It's little things like that I find go a long way of creating value. I encourage people to be a VC, a value creator for other people. And when you become good at the skill of creating value in real time for others, you can literally take someone you just met and in a very short period of time build a lot of trust very quickly, and because you've added a lot of value. And my favorite way of adding value is making strategic connections for people. As a matter of fact, you and I recently, I got an email from a friend of mine, Mark Thompson, who's also a best-selling author, very successful. Many people consider him one of the more successful angel investors in the country. He helped build Charles Schwab to the dynasty it is today. Mm-hmm. He's like, hey, tell me about Clout and what you know. He goes, I notice you have a very high Clout score. I said, you know what? I don't know anything about Clout. But you know what? My friends Terry and Gina do. And, they wrote a book on it. And I connected you guys, and you guys added a lot of value to Mark, of which Mark was very appreciative. And it's a good connection for you guys because Mark's plugged into Richard Branson and all sorts of people.
Yes.
And that's how you go, I believe, about creating value and friends out of thin air.
Yeah, exactly. And we really appreciate that. Mark is just a wonderful guy. We had a chance to talk with him. And the beauty of where we are today, it's very warm. We talked to him from our home here in Orlando to his home there, and we got a chance to talk. He's in the San Francisco Bay Area, and just right there in home, you get to meet someone like that. And like you, right now, we're in your home there in Los Angeles. Looks nice, by the way. That's a new one, right?
That's right.
Yeah, just moved in. Congratulations on the new home. And from what we can see here, it looks really good. But this is the intimacy that we have today. Even with all the technology, it's like, boom, we're suddenly in someone's home. But I got a question for you that we get often. We've addressed this in our book, and I'm sure you get asked often. Let's say I need to reach big-name celebrity in my industry. Maybe not necessarily a movie star or a sports star, but a big-name celebrity in my industry. And I really want to get to know that person, but she's kind of out of touch. I don't know her. She doesn't know me. Without coming up and being obnoxious about it, like, hi, I'm wonderful, I want to meet you, here's my card, call me, which I'm sure they get all the time. What strategies do you recommend people go through? What tactics do you recommend they go through in order to connect in a meaningful, genuine, human way to really build a meaningful relationship?
Sure. Well, for me personally, what's worked the best is I try to identify what their favorite cause or charity is. There's a number of different angles or things that I could do with that. Number one, can I personally support that charity and cause? Mm-hmm. Can I, the other thing is, they're a celebrity, so can I shine the light on something that they care about? Can I engage in conversation? If I look on how I've built like my saying network, whether it was Tony Robbins or Peter Guber, for example, who owns the Dodgers and Golden State Warriors, and he owns a bunch of movie, studios and all that kind of stuff. He's running in a whole nother social stratosphere. But when his book came out, the one thing that I had, which was currency, was I was able to connect him to some influential people who had a lot of social reach. And, maybe we're able to do an interview just like you and I are doing right here. Mm-hmm. If someone doesn't have a lot of social influence, one of the things or simple tactics and strategies, again, is engaging them on social media, being complimentary. Could they find a book? Could they send them a book? Can they send them a package? Could they send them a note? I'll give you another example that anyone could do and replicate. I was reading Fortune magazine a few months ago. On the cover was Bill Clinton, and it said the 50 greatest business leaders. Howard Schultz of Starbucks and Richard Branson. One of the guys that was on there was someone that I knew who started the X Prize named Peter Diamandis. Peter spoke at Sang a few years ago. Now, in my case, I happen to know him, but I don't see him very often, and it's not like I know Peter very well, so I did two things. One, fortunately, I had a cell phone, and I texted him a congratulatory note that on being one of the greatest, leaders. Within 4 minutes, he responded back.
Wow, nice.
Right. But let's just say you don't have his cell phone. One of the things that I did is I literally took the Fortune magazine, I cropped out Bill Clinton's face, and I cropped in Peter's, so it made it look like Peter now was on the cover. Right. And I sent him a giant, literally a foot wide, huge greeting card with the Photoshop thing of him on the cover of the magazine. And I congratulated him. So that's what I'm saying. How could you be creative? Who do you know in your network that might be able to make a favorable introduction? Or more importantly, how could you add value to something that they care about? That to me is probably strategy number one. When I was at this charity event a few weeks ago, Sean Robinson is, I think, one of the anchors of either Access Hollywood with Billy Bush. It's not like I know her, but I met her at the event. And as we were starting to talk about, she mentioned that she's got this book on self-esteem, and she wants to figure out how she could really jump up her speaking business. And that's something that I happen to know a lot about. So, immediately I reached out to her on Twitter. In her case, I happen to have a photo, and on my Twitter, I said, it was nice meeting you, and congratulations for running us. And she was the MC, so I congratulated her on something that she did well. And I also plugged in my photo so she would remember. Then I also forwarded her an email because I knew what her email was. And now it's a question of how could I serve her? Is there an article? Is there someone that I could put her in touch with? Is there a speaker bureau that I know that doesn't know her? That how can I connect the dots so 1 + 1 can equal 11? But that's how I would approach it and how I would recommend others to do it as well.
I like that because you're doing what needs to be done, and the really best way to do it is not just saying, "Hi, I'm wonderful. I want you to like me." You're being proactive. You're finding the areas where they have an interest, groups where they're involved. And one of the things we mentioned in the book correlates exactly with what you're saying. We say find out about the cause that they like and get involved in those causes. Get involved. If you find out that a big name celebrity is a member of the West Side Charity for Dogs or whatever, and that's really important. Well, you get involved in that then, if it's genuine. If it's something that you think, I really care about dogs as well. I live over on the West Side. Well, then let's do that. And so you would find those areas where there's a correlation and make it work. Larry, you do this regularly all the time. Thank you.
And by the way, because a lot of these things are free and available for everyone, especially in the world in the advent of social media, blogs, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. You could do your own research, especially if someone's famous or well-known or influential in their industry. A lot of times you could read their Twitter streams or their blogs or find articles about them and oftentimes find that one hook or that one unique angle that allows you to reach out in a way that can contribute to something that they're doing. I'll give you a perfect example. I met Sir Richard Branson at a charity function years ago, and he was flanked by 2 security guards at that time. And it wasn't like I knew Richard at all, but I invited him to something based on what I researched, okay? At that time, he was giving away several $billions of profits from his company towards the environment. I said, Richard, someone from your organization should be at this meeting. There's going to be a meeting with private, closed doors amongst high-level CEOs talking about the environment, how they can contribute and help. And to my utter shock and amazement, I followed up with an email, said, per Richard Branson, he suggested you're the most appropriate executive to follow up with in regards to this matter. I assumed I was emailing someone in Richard's organization. It turned out he emailed me back personally, and he actually gave me his private email in like a 20 to 30 second interaction, but it's because I did my homework and I asked him a question about something that I thought would be of value to him. And so to me, that just proves time and time again, we all have the tools. You don't have to be born into the right country club. You can really make things happen with what's available to us, both on social media and being smart about it and adding, creating one connection at a time and creating value for those individuals.
Yeah, I particularly like that. You're creating value. And one of the things I talk about is that it's important to establish and then build those relationships. And the third is the most important part, maintaining. And so what do you do to maintain? Like, you've met this big name celebrity. You've been there and she said, yes, it's great. And you had a wonderful experience. She got value out of it. You got value. Now you're more than acquaintances. You know each other, might even consider each other a friend. What do you do from that point forward to maintain the relationship?
Yeah, so I use something what I call pinging. Now, if I have the best case scenario, I try to get their cell phones. That's not always possible. Second best thing is to get their email. Third thing is
their private email, the one that they really read.
Exactly. And then I'll give you a perfect example. Tony Hsieh of Zappos would be a good example. He's busy. He's an iconic business leader. He's created Zappos. They're world renowned for their customer service. Yeah. This guy's busy. I mean, the guy literally has 10 executive assistants just to manage his email.
Wow.
Fortunately, in his case, I do have his private email. So I ping him a pretty good bit. But for example, he wrote a book called Delivering Happiness, okay? Yes. About a year and a half ago, there was a book that, Time Magazine came out with an article called, it was all about happiness. So it was on Time Magazine. All I did is I sent the link to him saying, I don't know if you saw this, but I thought of you. He responded, thanks for thinking of me, hadn't seen the article. So, the other thing is keeping tabs on what's important to them now. A lot of times, the book was probably the big thing for him a couple years ago. Today, the downtown project is important to him.
Yeah, in Vegas.
So are there people that I know? Are there articles? Is there a conference that might be important for him to speak at or be a part of and stuff like that? So it's a constant thinking of them, whether through email, via social media, via text if I have it. If I'm in their area, again, I'll invite them. In his case, I invited him to this charity benefit. He couldn't make it, but again, at least I was thinking of him. And it's just always, trying to stay abreast of these kind of things. And let me make one final thing. A lot of times, we all know lots of people. And, Facebook says you have friends, 5,000. I find it's very difficult to really, truly stay in touch, get to know, understand, and really serve up tremendous value with thousands and thousands of people. Doesn't mean you can't send great articles and have a newsletter, but I'm talking about really getting to know someone intimately. Mm-hmm. So I would write this down. Who are your MVPs? Who are your most valuable relationships? Mm-hmm. And focus on serving those. You serve those people, you'll serve the world anyway, because you're going to add, a lot of value to a lot of influential people. But that's how I try to, go about staying in touch and adding value to a lot of those kind of individuals.
Yeah, that's real good words of advice. And those of you watching this, think about that. This is something that can really change your life and your career, because it's about the people that know you in a favorable way. I love the way Brian Tracy said it. That's what really will determine your success more than anything. The number of people who know you in a favorable way. Larry Benet is a person that you want to get to know. And Larry, people say, hey, I like this guy. What's the best way for them to get to know more about you, to find out what you have to offer?
They can either go to larrybenet.com.
And spell that for us, for those who are listening on audio, please.
BENET. They can also go to freegiftsfromlarry.com. And there, I have a free report on how to connect with anyone, anytime, anywhere, how to stay in touch. What did I say to Richard Branson, or what did I say to Larry King in a little bit to get invited to breakfast with him after 60 seconds? Simple strategies that I've used to connect with some very influential people and add value to them. And if they want to learn more about saying, they could go to sayingevents.com.
Okay. Sayingevents.com would be the place to go to see all that. Well, Larry, it is an honor to have you here, sir, and we're just glad to be a part of what you're doing and looking forward to our next exciting adventure.
Thank you very much, Terry. Have an amazing day.
Okay. Thanks, my friend.